This is installment 3, and I want to focus on the display. The display is our terminal, and I want to come up with something that's a lot better for our display. And this is fairly simple in the programming aspect, so we'll go that direction and get into some of these other things later. One of the things that I don't want to get into until we're ready is the user login and password and those kinds of things. The logic is going to get complicated there. So let's just bypass that one in our design document and move on to areas that are easier to program, so that when maybe we'll run out of gas and decide not to put a username and a login. I hope not, but it's always possible. Here's our design document, just the most high-level design document that you could come up with. Welcome screen. User login, we were going to skip that, and populate variables with user file or create new user file. That one's going to be a little involved too. And user greeting screen. Let's just do it this way. Let's just focus on these two items. Welcome screen and user selections for inputs. Categories, balances, bills. I'm going to focus on those two, and that should keep us busy. So let's go back to welcome screen, and I'm going to pull up the nano welcome screen.txt, clear the screen, print welcome to net worth centered in screen, and press any key to continue. Let's see, I'm going to update this a little bit and say print welcome.networth centered in, and I'm going to say, so that's where I'm headed next. And I'm going to bring in some information from a file that explains this kind of thing. So, what do you think? It's got big letters, so I guess that makes it better. Took me a while to get these things set up, but I just did this manually. And then I've got a little message down there saying, press any key to continue. And then in the programming, we'll have to do a clear screen. So let's actually create the program lines that will produce this output. You know, before I design the function that's going to put that welcome screen on there, I have to find out who's going to call that function. And who's going to call that function but the main loop. So I'm all the way back at mainloop.txt. And I'm looking at this design that I've got so far, while not log out, with the idea that you're going to have to do a log out at any point in this sequence. Well, I'm thinking through that, and that might not be so good. Let me change it a little bit, or change it a lot. Let me go over to this. The main loop is going to call the welcome screen. I don't care what happens. We're going to call the welcome screen. And the way to get out of the welcome screen is going to be press any key, which we just showed on that screen. So that's going to happen. If we have any initialization, right now I don't have any ideas that we're going to have initialization, but sometime we might. So I'm going to have that as a placeholder. Then I'm going to come down here for user login. I told you we were going to wait on that. In fact, we're waiting on everything except the welcome screen. We just want that one to be called, and these others we can just comment out for right now. And let's see, but I'll just keep all these things in there. Somehow, let's see, what am I trying to do? We want to be able to log out at any of these situations. Let's see, let me mark each of these. Populate variables, the user has no control over that. The user greeting screen, press any key to continue thing, and then the user selections. That's the one where we really need a logout. So if we do a logout, let me just make some notes here. Only on those two situations as I think through this. So those are the only ones where we go to logout. Eventually we're going to get to cleanup, even if we don't do the logout. There's only those two places where we need logout. So we'll figure out in the programming how that ends up. And then we're down here to clean up. Well, again, that's undefined. So what do we have defined? Well, all we're even close to defining at this point is this darn welcome screen. So what's my programming going to be like for the main loop? There's my nano main.py. Let's see what I've got in here. And see, they have other main.pys, but this is the only one that's in the network directory. Welcome screen. How interesting is that? And in order to get the definition of the welcome screen, normally we have to do this thing where I'm going import and the file name of the welcome screen. And the file name of the welcome screen is welcome screen.py. Now the thought process is here that the welcome screen function calls the file welcome screen.py, and that's what gives us our funny little thing. This has the definition for welcome screen. This calls the welcome screen. There's no parameters yet that I see. Notice I put the file name in front of the function name. That's so that the program, the Python code, knows that where the welcome screen is defined. And this tells you to include it. That would be like in C code, we would include some header files. This is the way we do it in Python. I think that is enough. So I hit screen, log out, and we're all done. Yay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And all those steps in between, we're just going to, well, let's put some comments in here. Comments are great. Love comments. So what I'm going to do is come over here and say, let's go back and look at the design and see if our design looks right again. Okay, we've got, we're using Visual Studio. Cool colors, all sorts of neat stuff, and it tells you if you do things wrong. So here's the main loop. And that's called main.py. So let's look at welcome screen and see what I came up with. There's welcome screen. Oh, wait a minute. Did I just type in the screen and that's it? Well, not really. Let's see what I've got at the top of this file. Oh, a whole bunch of programming stuff. I've got an import system, which gives me some input system functions, import OS, which gives me some OS functions, and then I come down here and ooh, it gets neat. If OS name is not equal to NT, then go ahead and put the Mac and Linux stuff. That's what we care about. Else, you're going to use Windows. Nobody likes Windows. Okay, import TTY and term iOS. Those are some other things from the system that we'll need to use for the now clear the screen for Mac and Linux. Okay, I went ahead and put Mac Linux first. If the OS name is not NT, then the command we do is clear. Else we use Windows, OS system, CLS. We don't want to use Windows. I'm mentioning it just so we can be proper. The place where I stole the code did this for me. So, and you know, steal code out there. Do some little AI and steal the code. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, here's the definition of my wait for key thing. It gets a little involved, but I think it's pretty cool. Okay, if the OS name is not equal to NT, now we're going to do Mac and Linux. We do FD, which is file description. And we're doing the file is standard input. Standard input, that's what you're doing with the keyboard. And then what do we do? Old settings is from that file. In other words, old settings says what's the key key buffer look like now? And then we're going to come down here and do this try and finally thing, which I'm not real smart about yet. I'm going to do some more research to figure out what try and finally. I would have probably set up some kind of while loop, but anyway, we do the set raw, and then we read into the keyboard buffer. And if the keyboard buffer is different, let's see, where do we detect if it's different or not? Okay, I guess we don't really do the read unless we hit a key. We hit a key, and then we go out here to file description, TCSA drain. Who knows what that is? I have to find out in old settings. Anyway, I ran the darn thing and it works. So here's welcome screen. Here's where I just laid this thing out in a text file that I showed you earlier, and now what I'm going to do is do it with programming. Here's clear the screen, that was defined above. Then we do a print. Now we do 4 new lines so it doesn't start at the very top of the screen. Then we do spaces of 28 spaces before we start writing net. So that makes net worth right over here in the middle over the ORT. The NET is over the ORT in worth. Then down here we print the W right up next to the border, and those are the different print lines for different things like that. And then here's a program designed to provide instant feedback on the user's financial well-being. I certainly like that statement. Then we say press any key to continue, and then wait for key. And wait for key was defined above here in the DEF section. So this should run and just, it should just work like a clock. Let's see if we've got any other files. Let's do logout.py and see what happens there. Logout.py does an amazing thing. It says goodbye. So when we press any key, we should get by. Let's try and run this in our wonderful IDE programming environment. And what I'm getting used to do is you go to main, and then I do a control F5. And what happened? I don't see anything. Oh, there it goes. Oh, there we go. I guess it took a little time. It had to save the file and then run it. Well, all I see is the bottom of this thing. So I want to see the real thing. So I'm going to have to switch to another window, and then we'll look at that. So in a minute, I'll run this thing from the terminal directly and show you how beautiful it is. Okay, here's the terminal window. We got a blank terminal window. I'm going to go up here and enter into the blank terminal window. I'm going to type Python 3, which launches the Python program. And then I'm going to type in main.py, and that should run this thing, and we should all be impressed. Let's see what happens. Beautiful. No other little chicken tracks on here. We got net worth. Just barely fits inside this screen. If you're limited to 80 columns, here's what's going to happen. What you won't like is if you're limited to 80 columns, this is what's going to happen. It's going to crap this thing out and look horrible. But if the screen is wide enough, then it gives you a nice, wonderful display. Program design, maybe I should put some music behind this. A program designed to provide instant feedback on the user's financial well-being. Press any key to continue. So I will just hit any key. Goodbye. So I suppose you could clear the screen and say goodbye, but that's all we have for now. Da-da-da-da-da-da. You should be impressed. If not, don't ever watch this channel again.